Good morning, everyone. I'm Kristi Noem. I'm the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and we just recently, in the last couple of days, have had one of our own that has been attacked and has been harmed dangerously by violent criminals that have been run loose here in New York City, but also in this country, as a result of sanctuary city policies and the policies of the Biden administration. I just want you all to know that we have our hearts and our prayers going out with our officer and with his family and his friends, and we'll be lifting him up in prayer for his quick recovery and his healing from this terrible tragedy that has befallen him. Listen, our officer was off duty on Saturday evening when him and his friend were attacked. They were attacked by two individuals that were set on robbing them, and thankfully he had his service weapon with him and was able to defend himself and his friend, and injured one of those individuals that was trying to do them harm. His quick action speaks to his tenacity and his excellence in training and skill, and because of that, one of the perpetrators was wounded in this interaction and was incarcerated when he came in to get medical treatment. One of the suspected attackers, the one that was injured, his name is Miguel Francisco Mora Nunez, a Dominican national that was entering into this country illegally back in 2023. He was then released back into this country by the Biden administration. Miguel Francisco Mora Nunez and has a rap sheet that is a mile long. He was arrested. He was charged with grand larceny and also assault. The state of Massachusetts has an active warrant out for him for armed robbery with a firearm. He also has many other charges against him, such as kidnapping and witness intimidation. There's absolutely zero reason that someone who is scum of the earth like this should be running loose on the streets of New York City. He was arrested 4 different times in New York City, and because of the mayor's policies and policies, was released back to do harm to people and to individuals living in this city. Make no mistake, this officer is in the hospital today fighting for his life because of the policies of the mayor of this city and the city council and the people that were in charge of keeping the public safe. They refused to do so, and now we have the situation on our hand where someone who has dedicated their lives to protecting the public is now fighting in Sanctuary City and to policies and to change their tactics right now. Their job is to take an oath to protect the public, to out there every single day, provide for each other and to try to live the American dream, and they want to do so safely in their own communities. How many more lives will it take? How many more people have to be hurt and victimized before we have public safety be a #1 priority in some of our largest cities? When I look at what Mayor Adams did to see the families that have suffered because of his policies. We can look across this country at other mayors. We look at Mayor Wu in Boston and what has happened there under her watch. What's happened in LA with the riots and the violence and the protests that have gone on because of Mayor Bass and what she has perpetuated. When you look at Mayor Johnson in Chicago and how devastating it is to live in that city, in some of those poorest communities, how they suffer every single day with the violence that's in front of them, just because these individuals are protecting criminals. They're protecting criminals who go out and murder, rape, rob. They perpetuate violence on our children. They traffic them and drugs and damage this country every single day under the protection of Sanctuary City and governors who put in place these policies that allow them to perpetuate these crimes with no consequences. What I would say is today, my hope is that this would wake up these individuals and they would recognize that they can't keep letting these dangerous criminals go free. They can't continue to let these individuals be brought in for crimes they're committing against the public and then releasing them right back onto the streets with no consequences whatsoever. Fortunately for us today, our officer survived. He survived. He's going through a very difficult time, and I would ask that you respect him and his family and his friend who was with him and what they have gone through. But I would also say that we can't guarantee that the next victim of these dangerous criminals will be treated the same or will be able to get through this dangerous situation. We were able to bring the second individual in and have detained him as well, and he will face consequences and hopefully strong prosecution in his involvement on Saturday night. But my hope is that we can continue to, when ICE is out in our communities and they're lodging detainers against individuals, that we would have a city like New York City start to honor them and allow us to bring these criminals to justice, allow them to get them out of our communities so that they can't continue to hurt people like we saw on Saturday night. We still have a lot of work to do. We've seen violence against our officers go up over 830% just in recent days because of the rhetoric out of politicians and the rhetoric out of individuals who are letting this victim against the public. So I would call on everybody today to happen, how in one moment someone's life can change, their whole family can change. And it is happening every day across this country. And this officer and his family, while today they are suffering, they still continue to serve the public and recognize that they want to go back out and make sure that they're doing all that they can to uphold the rule of law in this country. We're doing everything in our power to make sure that our officers out on the streets have the equipment and the training and the resources and the backup that they need to do their jobs, but they should never have to deal with an individual who was arrested 4 different times for violating the law and then released. And that individual was released on the streets of the city because of Mayor Bass's policies and because of his city council's policies and because of politicians who talk big and then people get hurt. People get hurt, and in many cases they end up losing their lives. Let's hope that that's never true and that today is the day that those policies change and people get the courage to make sure they're making the decisions that actually do protect people going forward. We're going to bring the perpetuators of violence to justice. President Trump has promised that for the American people, and he's going to follow through on it. I'll do all that I can, and I'm so grateful to have partners like Rodney Scott with me from Border Patrol and Protection, and also with Tom Homeland as the borders are. We'll continue to work to make sure that we're dealing with the violence that we see on our streets, but we also recognize that here in these sanctuary cities, it's much more dangerous because of the politicians who aren't taking responsibility for what they're doing. They're setting the American to become victims of crime, and it has to stop today. I'd ask you all to keep our law enforcement officers in your prayers, their families, as they face the environment that they do every day while they do their job. This officer wasn't even on the job. He was out enjoying a beautiful evening with a friend of his and was a victim of crime, and it ended up with him mortally and seriously wounded, and he is going to, because of the great care of the doctors that are taking care of him today, pull through, but our prayers are going to be with him and his family as they work their way through this situation. With that, I will turn it over to Rodney Scott, who is the Commissioner of our Customs and Border Protection.